Hi brothers and sisters, Naomi back for another video. I thought what we'd talk about today is an entire chapter. We'll just read through it and just discuss it as we go, because it validates everything I've been saying in my videos. And if there's one way that I've realized my mantle has changed, because I spoke on this in another video, it's that I've become so set in knowing that I'm right. I've become confirmed, I guess, by the Lord in so many ways that this is the straight path that I'm on. I am on the straight path. And, you know, I couldn't say that a year ago without having doubts creep in to my mind and into my spirit on this. And why the theology isn't fully developed. Alright, so for anybody who's watching some of my videos, you'll find me making conflicting statements, and that's necessary when you're trying to understand a theology that has never been taught to you before. And you're really building it, as they say, from the foundation up, because those foxes, those men of Baal, those sons of Belial, they removed the foundation handful by handful. We discussed that in one of the videos that I did repost. And it's called Woman, Key of David, or Who You Are in God, something like that. And it discusses those foxes and what they did to the foundation of this world, which was to remove the truth and to build it on lies. Okay, so that's what we've been showing you in all of these videos. We've shown you through scriptures how the daughter of Zion is the key of David. She's the rejected spirit, the righteous spirit. Man chose a covenant with the harlot spirit, wherein he built himself up with thick clay under the law. That's how he built his strength. That's how he empowered himself against woman. And it is, I would address this video in particular to women who have doubts as to what I'm saying, whether it's true or not. Because like I say, when it comes to my mantle, I understand the change. I'm being strengthened. I feel as though I have been so strengthened over the last little while that this is absolute truth. So Isaiah 59 absolutely shows us this. And like I just said, the verse that that I just stated is found in Habakkuk 2:6. So we'll just read it again. Shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, woe to him that increases that which is not his. So this law of inequality, where he builds himself up with really many daughters' riches. He builds himself up. How long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. So he empowers himself by stealing your riches. All right? That's what it's saying. And in the process, what this law does, this man-made law, which is Mosaic law, which is Torah law, that the Antichrist is going to put in play to subjugate, to try to attempt at least to subjugate the key of David, which is the manifested spirit of Christ in the earth. All right, and Isaiah 59 addresses all of this. But he built himself up with thick clay, and in effect, he weakens you and he tears you down under the law. All right, and so you're left with this huge inequality. You're left with him empowered and yourself weakened, and then that comes into a physical existence. You are literally a weaker form because of what he did to you under the law. All right, so once you get your correlations, then you begin to understand all these videos. And like I said, you're going to find me making conflicting statements until we get to the deeper understandings of it all. All right. In Hosea 6:7 says this. It says, as Adam, they have broken the covenant. They were unfaithful to me. That's what Mother God says. Sorry, I got things coming up. They were unfaithful to me there. And then when you go to Malachi, I continually say Micah 2. It's Malachi 2. It is proven that it was man who dealt unfaithfully and treacherously against the wife of his covenant, of his youth, it states. And she is referred to as his spirit there. I don't care what anybody says. That's what you're looking at, an allegory there. And he dealt treacherously with the wife that was given in covenant. That's the righteous spirit that was given in covenant to him. And he violated his covenant with her, and he chose the harlot. That's what he chose there. So let's begin reading in Isaiah 59. And we'll show this entire chapter is all about the daughters of Zion. It's about the sons who dealt treacherously. That's what this entire chapter is about. Okay, so I have it pulled up. I also have it here in front of me in my Bible. But we'll go in here and we'll begin reading, and we'll begin extrapolating information. You know, and what I find so sad about today's world is that there's so many saints that have jumped on board of rapture dreams. They'll watch every rapture dream that's posted, and they validate it for themselves is what they do. They continually will validate what another saint says about having this rapture dream. And, oh yeah, we're all going home. And they don't realize the Bible says what's going to bring on the day of the Lord is hard study. It says that's what's going to hasten the day of the Lord. They don't want to hear it, but that's what the Word of God says. If you're so into the Word of God and backing it up and all of this, then you have to go in and you have to study it. And you have to break it down, and you have to understand what it actually is telling you the day of the Lord actually is all about. And it is about the controversy of Zion, and I do have a video posted on that. And what they did to the righteous daughter Zion, known as the key of David, which is a government of God placed upon Christ's shoulder. All right? He restored her back. Now, men can't understand how another man could restore the righteous spirit back to her rightful place, wherein she becomes the heir of everything. She runs everything. That's what her role is. She teaches the body the laws of heaven, and she governs this earth, which, according to Isaiah 27, because right now, what is exalted in the midst of the body, and when you understand what the midst of the body is correlated to on this earth, it's Zion. They have exalted the harlot spirit in Zion, Mount Zion. And there's a lot of verses that says that's in the north. The congregation of the north, all right, is where daughter Babylon, Lucifer said, I will, right? I'll exalt myself on the mount of the congregation of the north, right? And you read a lot of passages where the congregation of the Lord was on the north of Mount Zion. And so the correlation there is that the midst of the body came to be known as Zion on this earth. That was your representation in allegory. And we know from study, and we've got videos posted validating this, that Israel came to exalt the harlot spirit. Babylon, daughter Babylon, in the heart, in the midst. The harlot spirit. And that's why you see verses in Revelation 6, it says, the hosts of heaven will fall like the leaves off of a fig tree. Well, Israel is called the fig tree. Well, why? Why is that the allegory given there? Because Israel has come to exalt the Babylon, daughter Babylon, in the midst of their heart, known as the harlot spirit, wherein they created man-made law, known as Torah, which is designed to subjugate women. You go read the verses in Galatians 4:24. It says Hagar and her children are under bondage of what came from Mount Sinai. We know that was the law, Torah, that came from there. That's what we know. All right? And we also know that that is what the Antichrist is going to put in play. He is going to confirm the covenant for 7 years. All right? And that covenant is Torah law. It is Mosaic law. That is what they're going to confirm. And the reason why they want to confirm it so badly is because it subjugates women. All right? Particularly by using wicked women as the reason to take rights away. They not only take away the rights from the wicked and from the harlot, but they take them away from the righteous daughters as well. And that's what they're really after. And that's what you have to learn to reason. This is the strong delusion. And it is going to take a strong woman. And that is why Mother God refers to these daughters as her mighty ones. It takes a mighty daughter to stand up against what's coming on scene. It's here. It's been here. That we've been fighting against. But that's what we're looking at. Okay? And we've been looking at. So sorry, I got on a tangent there. So let's begin reading Isaiah 59. Behold, the Lord's hand is not shortened that it cannot save. Neither her ear heavy that it cannot hear. Verse 2, but your iniquities have separated between you and your God. God there is 430, and I largely view that as generally another title of Daughter Zion, or the Daughters of Zion, which is generally 410, I think. But the God here, 430, is another name for Daughter Zion. And so it says, but your iniquities have separated between you and your God. Now we showed you how if you go in and you read Isaiah 51, Isaiah 52, and you reason the text out, because you have to use reasoning in the Spirit to do this, and you reason them along with what is stated in Psalm 89, you come to understand that the strong right hand of God was Daughter Zion. That was what she was called. And she is the strength of the body, all right? And she is also known as God of this earth, 430. And your sins have hid her face. His face ain't hid. We go watch the images, all right? Deuteronomy 4, I believe it was. God says, you saw no image of me, you make no image of me. So Mother is a God of fairness, and she says, don't make no image of me, all right? You bow down to God. That's what you bow down to. And lo and behold, every throne that you pull up, it's usually got two huge giant men sitting on two huge thrones, is usually the picture of Father and Son, with a whole bunch of little tiny people standing around them. Well, if that isn't a false image, I don't know what it's portraying. But, so it says you have hid, it says his, oh no, her face from you, that she will not hear. She ceased to hear us anymore after we were cast down. All right? And we discussed that in the last 4 or 5 videos. All right? And it's amazing because when you get pulling up cross references, all right? Now I'm going to get off on a sidetrack here for a minute. But when you get pulling up, let me see, your cross references in Isaiah 42, I believe. Let me look back here in my notes. I just did this like 2 days ago. No, it wasn't. It is somewhere in Isaiah 42. But I was actually looking at Isaiah 14, verse 13. It says, for thou hast said in thine heart, I will ascend into heaven. I will exalt my throne above the stars of God. I will sit also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. All right. So we know we're talking about Zion. And we know the stars are mentioned in Daniel 8 that were cast down, all right, and truth was stamped upon. And Daniel 8:10, and she, it says it, but it's she, Babylon, waxed great even to the hosts of heaven. All right, so man exalted that harlot spirit even to the point where she now took up the Holy of Holies in his heart. So she gets exalted even to the hosts of heaven, and she cast down some of the hosts and of the stars to the ground and stamped upon them. Now that took us to verses that we find in Lamentations 3. Whenever I went into Isaiah 14:13, and from there I moved on. It was Lamentations 3, and it caused me to cross-reference Isaiah 14:13 and then Daniel 8, verse 10, talking about the starry host that was cast down. And it's all in reference to the daughters of Zion. There's no way you can't see that. There was more there. All right. But that'll have to be for another video. But in Isaiah 59, here we go. But your iniquities have separated between you and your God, and your sins have hid her face, not his face, her face from you, and she will not hear us. All right? But there comes a point where she says, tell the daughter Zion, I hold her oath fulfilled. All right? She has bore the sins. Now she can rise up. And this chapter is all about that. Verse 3, for your hands are defiled with blood, and your fingers with iniquity. Your lips have spoken lies. Your tongue hath uttered perverseness. Now we're moving to the men here, to the harlot spirit that they come to exalt, that allows him to create laws wherein he is perpetuating violence against women, I would say. It's against everyone, but in particularly it is women that are targeted. So verse 4, none calleth for justice, nor any pleadeth for truth. They trust in vanity, and they speak lies. They conceive mischief, and they bring forth iniquity. So this moved, of course, to become a time when it involved all of us, both male and female. When the daughters in particular, we're not calling for justice. These are the way the laws has got to be. And if you've been brainwashed by current theology, man-made religious theology, then your mind will oftentimes harken back to Old Testament law, wherein you think it comes from God, it's the hand of God, and it's righteous laws, wherein you think it's okay to subjugate yourself and not cry out for justice and equity. All right? Equity means equality to all. But because of the New Testament, which came to be translated and added to by the sons of Belial, the men of Baal, you think it's okay for violence to be perpetuated against you as a woman. It's taught to you. It's embedded in you. It's from the time you're a little girl. You believe yourself inferior and less, and that under the law it is stated that it is okay to perpetuate violence against women. Not by the laws of heaven. Those are by fallen Adam's laws perpetuated when he made a covenant with the harlot spirit. All right? Wherein it causes Hagar and her children to be under bondage. And the spirit that frees you is of Sarah's line. All right? Her lineage. Which is through the daughters, the righteous daughters. All right? Which represents the spirit of mother from above that frees you. All right? And these are laws of equity and fairness and of truth. They're the straight path that's about to come forth. And again, so it says, none calleth for justice, nor any pleadeth for truth. They trust in vanity. You trust in the lies of this shaped theology by men. You trust that they're willing to be fair when they go in and study. And it's not about putting women under them. And you trust in this idea of your husband to be fair to you as a woman, to treat you as an equal, to go in, to study the word, and to be fair about it. And he's not. Wake up. He's not. And he hasn't been. All right? He has not been faithful. All right? He is the unfaithful one. And that's why you get Adam has transgressed the covenant. He has dealt unfaithfully with me. All right? Because mother gave her daughter, representing the spirit, given with the words and the laws of heaven, to teach the body, and he rejected her and made a covenant with the harlot that put him in charge under the law, wherein he built himself up with thick clay. Sorry, none calleth for justice, okay? For truth, they trust in vanity and speak lies. They conceive mischief and bring forth iniquity. So here you're looking again at the twofold. We see those sons who are false prophets. We see them mentioned in Jeremiah 3, 4, or 5. I can't remember now which chapter it is. And then we know the daughter Zion. It says, we have, as it were, brought forth wind. We have not wrought any deliverance in the earth. The inhabitants of the world have not fallen. So what the daughter Zion is saying there is she has brought forth empty doctrines. That's what we come to understand when means there. So here they're conceiving mischief and they're bringing forth iniquity. Because you're believing in man-made theology and the lies taught by his hand and not by the Spirit of God from above. They hatch cockatrice eggs and weave the spider's web. He that eateth of their eggs dieth, and that which is crushed breaketh out into a viper. So they're not bringing forth anything of truth. That's what that's saying. It's saying they've all become poisoned. They're all speaking the same lies now. Verse 6, their webs shall not become garments. Now pay attention. This is what's led me to look at Isaiah 59 more closely, because this verse would often come to my mind. Verse 6 of Isaiah 59, their webs shall not become garments. What's a garment? It's your body. And in this case, a body that's going to last eternally. All right? Their webs, now watch what webs are here, shall not become garments, neither shall they cover themselves with their works. Their works are works of iniquity, and the act of violence is in their hands. Well, what do they perpetuate against women most of the time under man-made law or under the Torah even? They perpetuate violence against us, and they say it's from God. God says, no, it isn't. That's from you, wanting to subjugate my righteous spirit under you. That's what that's from. It's from yourself and from that harlot that you joined yourself to. No, you're not. He that's joined to a harlot is a harlot. It says is one. But you're a harlot if you're one. Come on. So who did Christ join himself to? He didn't join himself to any harlot. He joined himself to the righteous daughter, Zion, known as the key of David, which is what the controversy or the day of the Lord is about. Zion, and what fallen Adam did to her, which was to subjugate her under violence, under man-made law, which was the covenant between the harlot spirit and fallen Adam. And he perpetuates violence against both wicked and righteous under those laws. And so you can see what's coming on scene, an attack against the righteous daughters, but again, they're going to use the wicked daughters to perpetuate that silencing of the righteous daughters. All right, this is how it works. Verse 7, their feet run to evil, and they make haste to shed innocent blood. Their thoughts are thoughts of iniquity. Wasting and destruction are in their paths. They're on a crooked path. This is not the path to God that we're teaching. A triple male Godhead perpetuates violence against women. I don't know how you cannot reason that thought out. Verse 8, the way of peace they know not, and there is no judgment in their goings. They have made them crooked paths. They have. Whosoever goeth therein shall not know peace. Verse 9, therefore is judgment far from us. We don't got justice or judgment here right now. Why? Because we're on that crooked footpath. Because it's been preached to us through a false theology, an empty doctrine that have been perpetuated by sons listening to fathers, who listen to fathers, who listen to Baal, and sons of Belial, who brought this false theology into existence wherein they could build themselves up with thick clay under the law and tear you down under it. And it is on the daughters to wake up. Mother keeps saying, remember, remember, wake up as to who you are. Because every time you build him up, you are tearing yourself down. And Mother says, I am a God of equity. I never put your husband over you. You willingly allowed him to do it. When you went under his man-made law, that's your yoke. And she's saying, you now have a right to take it off. That's what I've been told. I don't think I could be sitting here teaching what I'm teaching without her having removed the yoke off of me. There's no way I could have done that. And yes, I'm still under this fallen flesh, because we still have a path to go. We still have a while on this path yet. So they have made crooked paths. Whosoever goeth therein shall not know peace. Verse 9, therefore is judgment far from us, neither does justice overtake us. We wait for light, but behold obscurity for brightness. But we walk in darkness, and we continue on in the paths of darkness until you begin to factor in the righteous feminine where she belongs. She's called the key of David. You're not going to understand the path of light until you begin to factor in the righteous spirit known as the key of David, which is the spirit laid upon Christ, which is the government that rules the body. And she is the true heir to the entire kingdom. Micah 4 or 5, I think it's 5 now, states it's a female descendant that will have her dominion restored back to her. And that was the righteous spirit that was kicked out of her rightful place by fallen Adam, who then daubed the wall up, lied. Verse 10, we grope for the wall like the blind. I think the daughters here almost are in view, because let's read it. We grope for the wall like the blind, and we grope as if we had no eyes. We stumble at noonday as in the night. We are in desolate places as dead, it's got men, I'm going to say dead women. Because these same women who are now groping for the wall like they're blind were the same daughters that were passing through the wall in Joseph's blessings that the archers shot at. The archers there is Baal, your husband, your Lord and your master. And they shot at her until she no longer recalled who she was. She was also cast out into the fields of the Gentiles. We've done studies on this. So this is a large theology that you have to understand certain, parts of it in order to pull it together. And it's not easy, and yet it is so easy to see what they did. So they're in desolate places. Well, again, it takes us to that word desolate, doesn't it? More of the children of the desolate than of she who has a husband. Well, she who had a husband, we learned, was Baal. He fell in love with himself, his own teachings, and he made his own law wherein he subjugated women under that law and built himself up with thick clay. All right? And we know Adam daubed his wall. All right? He daubed that wall up just as Solomon did. And it was known as the key of David. David left those gates open for the righteous daughters to pass through to their rightful birthright, wherein they would make laws of equity and righteousness. All right? Equity means fairness. Fairness to all, equality to all. No woman is under her husband. She never was under the laws of heaven. Never. That's taught by Torah. That's taught by men who came to exalt the harlot spirit. All right, which we come to know in the midst of the body. When you exalt something in your heart, that becomes the midst of your body where it's exalted. But on physical earth, the midst of the body is known as Zion. All right, and in Revelation 6, we clearly see that allegory. We know Jeremiah 51 tells us that Babylon exalted herself into the heavens, to the heights. That's in the midst of the body. She exalted herself. Well, she couldn't have exalted herself unless man chose to exalt her there. And he did. Because by exalting the harlot, he exalts himself. That's what he does. And so what came to be exalted in the midst, which was known as Zion, was Babylon. And you see that backed up by Revelation 6 when it says the hosts of heaven, that's the midst of the body, the second heaven, where we know Lucifer exalted herself too. She's in the second heaven. And her hosts, which was handed over to her, it stated that they were handed over to her in Daniel 8. All right? And truth was cast down to the ground. All right? And so we see the allegory in Revelation 6. When the hosts of heaven begin to fall, like the leaves off of a fig tree. The fig tree represents Israel, where daughter Babylon, the harlot spirit, has been exalted in the midst of the body. That's Zion. All right? That's what you're seeing there. So it says, we grope for the wall like the blind. All right? They forgot who they were. The daughters of Zion, the righteous daughters of Zion, forgot who they were. And there's an allegory that it's stated in many, many different passages and through the Psalms, that she went to sleep out in the fields of the Gentiles. That's what happens. But at the end, she awakens. And she remembers. And that's why this is on the daughters, to remember. And to awaken as to who you are. And she does tell us that. She says, stand up and defend yourselves. All right? And we are now at that point where we are permitted to do that, I believe. So they stumble at noonday as in the night. We are in desolate places as dead women. More are the children of the desolate than of she who has a husband. And we know the abomination that maketh desolate is a man inside of a man. He's come to the point where he even kicks off the harlot because he's fell so in love with himself that he believes himself to be the image of God. He believes he's God. And that's it. But yet, he can't deliver the children. It's only the Spirit that can deliver the children. And Mother tells him that, I believe in Jeremiah 23. We did a study on that. And she tells him that in Isaiah 46, I think. She says, you can't deliver the children because you are no God. She says, only God can deliver the children. And she says, you say it's a burden unto me to do this? She says in Isaiah 23. She says, you say it's a burden unto me to deliver the children? She says, don't worry. I won't bother to deliver you. I'll leave you right where you are to rot. That's what she says. And it requires reasoning the text out. It requires you to reason through the Spirit. All right? You were never meant to go to commentary. You were never meant to go to men on pulpits to teach you the Word. You were always meant to go to the Spirit to teach you this. And she says, you reason. Reason it out. What makes sense and what doesn't make sense. So, verse 11, we roar all like bears and mourn sore like doves. We look for judgment, but there is none. For salvation, but it is far off from us. Well, what were we told in Daniel 8? When the commander of the host was cast down, that's daughter Zion. And the harlot spirit was given control of the host. That's what it says. It says truth was cast down. Right? So it says for salvation, but it is far off from us. It more or less states the same thing in Daniel 8. The bear, she says, oh, I'm going to come upon you. Did I write this down? She says, I wrote it down somewhere, but I'll never locate it now. She says, I'll come upon you as a bear, as a mother, bereaved of her cubs. Well, that don't sound like a father to me. And she says it in one of the minor prophets, Old Testament there. She says, I'll come upon you as a bear bereaved of her cubs. Well, that's more the children of the desolate than of she who has a husband. And Mother says in Hosea 2, and we've talked about it, and we're going to continue to talk about it until it starts hitting home with a few people. She says, I will call her out of the wilderness, and I will restore her vineyards back to her. Well, she can only restore our vineyards back to us when we are no longer holding guile in our mouth. When we are speaking the truth, the straight path. And a he God is not the straight path. Even a he God is not a straight path. Because again, you see that allegory in Daniel 2. You see this stone cut out without hands. That's representing daughter Zion. Alright? Mount Zion. The stone cut out without hands that smashes those 10 toes. Well, that's your northern tribes. Your 10 northern tribes of Israel. And they smashed the toes to bring down the false image, which is what? It's a king. And Mother says, you wanted a king to rule over you. I gave you a king because that's what all the Adamic nations had, were kings. You didn't want a queen. So I said, fine, I'll give you into the hands of the wicked shepherd that you want governing you, that you want ruling you. And she was talking to her daughters there too. She was saying, you want these wicked men ruling over you who are going to end up perpetuating violence against you under the law. You chose them over me, and I hid my face from you. That's what she's saying. And she's saying to her daughters, wake up! You are not going home teaching a false theology that teaches a he, Godhead. You are not going anywhere. I don't care how many rapture dreams that you tell. I told you what would hasten on the day of the Lord. And that is hard studying the Word. And I told you it was a controversy of Zion. I told you that in the Old Testament. I don't care how many sons of Belial blotted the truth out so you couldn't see it. It's still there because I wrote it there. And my daughters of Zion will stand up at the appointed time. And now is the appointed time, I believe. So, a bear bereaved of her cubs. That's how she's going to meet them, she says. You took my children away from me. And you handed them over to the harlot spirit, and you taught them man-made theology, man-made lies, Torah, Mosaic law that puts Hagar and her children under bondage. Well, she says the spirit, the righteous spirit, is going to free them now. So we roar all like bears and mourn sore like doves. We look for judgment, but there is none for salvation, but it is far off from us. Verse 12. For our transgressions are multiplied before thee, and our sins testify against us. And they do. We are on the crooked path. But that 144,000 are found holding no guile in their mouth. That guile comes from man, who exalted the harlot spirit in his heart, wherein he began to preach law. And it even bled over into the New Testament. It says, tell your women to remain silent. So saith the law. Well, that don't sound like grace to me. Christ says, I come to bring liberty to all. I come to free you all. You are no longer subject to the laws. That's what he said. And what was the two laws that he stated? Wherein summed the entire laws up. Love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, with all thy mind, with all thy soul. And the second is such as this, love thy neighbor as thyself. But you are to remain silent, so says the law. So they're teaching law, and it's bled all through the New Testament. And it's just akin to Torah. They're teaching you Torah, they're just doing it in a very underhanded way. That's all they're doing. All right? So our transgressions are multiplied before us, and our sins testify against us, for our transgressions are with us, and as for our iniquities, we know them. Verse 13, in transgressing and lying against the Lord, and departing away from our God, speaking oppression, they oppress us, and revolt, conceiving and uttering from the heart words of falsehood. We studied that too. How men began to prophesy according to the imagining of their hearts. And that's just what they were doing in Jeremiah 23. They were imagining dreams, and they were handing them on to their male counterparts. And they were coming against the righteous daughters whom mother did speak through. That's who they were coming against. And judgment is turned away backward. That's right. She says you turn everything upside down. And justice standeth afar off, for truth is fallen. There we go. Truth was cast down in Daniel 8. In the street, and equity. What's equity? What does equity mean? Cannot enter. Equity means fairness. Laws of fairness. And they want to tell you that no, it don't make you fair, equal under the law. That's not what God's heaven's laws mean. Equity, the quality of being fair and impartial. Well, you won't find anything more partial than a man. Just go look at the rape cases. You won't find anything more partial than a man. And they try to treat us as if we're the ones that's done it to them. Equity of treatment, synonyms, fairness, fair-mindedness, justness, justice, equitableness, fair play, value, worth, valuation. So it means equality, ownership, rights, proprietorship, right of possession. They told women, I don't know for how many years, that we had no right to possess land. That's what they told us under the law. Women have no right to possess land. They absolutely did. That's what they were doing under the law. They were removing our rights to possess our birthright. That's what they were doing. They were removing our birthright. And that came with tearing down the houses on the wall, which you see Solomon doing when he was seizing power. And that's why you have two keys in total opposition to one another. You have the key of Solomon and the key of David. You want to know all about that, you got to go watch the Key of David video. All right? 14, and judgment is turned away. Okay? And equity cannot enter. Fairness cannot enter. All right? Verse 15, yea, truth faileth, and she that departeth from evil maketh herself a prey. And they were, these righteous daughters of Zion were sought as prey. All right? Against the lying plans that these sons of Baal, these men of Baal, and sons of Belial were trying to put in play, which was to write law and to subjugate their sisters under those laws. We're told all about that in Malachi 2. Again, go study. You don't believe me what they were doing. They were writing laws that perpetuated violence against their sisters. It says brother. No, keep reading. It clearly was the sisters they were targeting with violence under the law. And that's precisely what they were doing here. And the women were trying to take a stand because they had been so weakened under these laws. But they were attempting to make a stand for the truth. But every time any one of these daughters did that, they made themselves a prey. All right? And they were targeted for death. We're told many, many ways that they got rid of these righteous daughters. And the Lord saw it. She saw it from her throne. And it displeased her. It says him. They're always going to put a him. Bear that in mind. They're always going to put him. And it displeased her that there was no judgment, justice, equality, equity. It was gone by now. Verse 16. And she saw that there was no man, and wondered that there was no intercessor. Where was a decent man? Therefore her own daughters brought salvation unto her, and her righteousness it sustained her. So who birthed the only begotten Son? It was the daughters. It was a long line of daughters that he came through, who continued to hold on to the truth, and when he was birthed, they taught him truth. They taught him the truth of heaven. That's what made Christ an acceptable offering under the law of heaven. You see? Because he knew what the truth was. He'd been taught it by a long line of the daughters of Zion, wherein he was birthed by a woman, not by a son. And that shows you who birthed him in the heavens. It was the Spirit of truth that birthed him in the heavens. Mother, the Spirit of Mother birthed him. For she put on righteousness as a breastplate and a helmet of salvation upon her head, and she put on the garment of vengeance for clothing, and was clad with zeal as a cloak. They can't picture a female doing this, and yet she did. And we're going to rejoice according to a passage in Psalm. We will rejoice when we see the likeness of the image of God when she appears on the throne. We're going to rejoice in that because they for so long have denied us our rightful place in the Godhead. Verse 18, according to their deeds, accordingly she, not he. They've always got a he coming against a she. No, this is a she against a she, actually. And those fallen Adams, of course. But it's that adversary. In the beginning, Mother says, I will cause enmity between the woman's seed and Lucifer, the harlot's seed. There's going to be enmity between those two seeds. And according to their deeds, accordingly, she will repay. Fury to her adversaries. Yeah, that's the harlot spirit, and that's fallen Adam who exalted that harlot. Recompense to her enemies. To the island she will repay recompense. Verse 19. So shall they fear. Now these are the verses we really wanted to get into. They shall fear the name of the Lord from the west, and her glory from the rising of the sun. They're finally going to see the power of God manifested on earth, and it is the daughters of Zion. When the enemy, watch this, when the enemy shall come in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord shall lift up a standard against him. Well, we've got an enemy flooding in upon us, don't we? What do you suppose the standard is that the Lord raises up against the enemy? It's the straight path. That's what it is. Okay, well, I thought I had standard. But let's go in. Let's look it up in my Bible. It is 5127. Okay, Greek 5127. He's your standard here. Alright? And this is the daughter Zion. This is the standard that she raises up. This is your new foundation being reestablished. That's what it is. That those foxes dug out. Fox is a burrower, according to the word fox when you look it up. He dug out the truth. He dug out the principle. They dug out the principle that this world was to be founded upon. Put the harlot spirit's principles in play, which was to exalt himself. So it means vanish away, escape. To cause to escape. That's what the standard is. Alright? To escape, it means. Be gone away. Be promoted. Remove. It's got a whole bunch of other things there. But when we understand that this standard that the Lord's going to lift up means escape, who did the issues of death belong to? We're told it was daughter Zion's number 136. Now we established daughter Zion's number by the passage that we find in Psalm 110, along with many other passages that indicate that it was the daughter Zion that was cast down from her rightful place, who will strike through her enemies in the day of her wrath. She represents the key of David. She represents the righteous daughter restored back to her rightful place as the righteous spirit that governs the body. She is the exalted one on this earth. The dominion will be restored back to her. It was took from her and given to the harlot. That's the host of heaven that was handed over to daughter Babylon, that exalted herself in the midst of the body, which means into the second heaven, as the ruler. Your principle, your principalities of the air, the principle that this world was built upon was a lying principle that fallen Adam just gobbled up, and it was like honey on his tongue. But it was cobra's venom. It's cold, killing him. He can't build a body that's eternal based on violence under the law, which is perpetuated by this covenant between fallen Adam and the harlot, which is known as Torah law or Mosaic law. All right? So the standard that she's going to lift up is the principle of truth, found in the daughters of Zion, holding no guile in their mouth, which is to establish the clean footpath, which then leads to your escape, which is given to daughter Zion in Psalm 68. It says the issues of escape belongs to this Lord, which is 136. All right? And this is the standard established. Okay? The teachings of heaven, the laws of heaven given back to man. And you have a choice to receive that or not receive it. All right? But it is the clean footpath, the principles, the standards being established by the daughter Zion back in her rightful place. And you watch what it says here. And the Redeemer shall come to Zion, and unto them that turn from transgression in, it says Jacob, but you could say Israel, saith the Lord. Now watch 21. What verse 21 says. As for me, this is my covenant with them, saith the Lord. My spirit that is upon thee, and my words which I have put in thy mouth. Talking about daughter Zion that was given in covenant to teach the body. Shall not depart out of thy mouth, nor out of the mouth of thy seed, nor out of the mouth of thy seeds, saith the Lord, from henceforth and forever. So it's daughter Zion restored back to her rightful place. That's what this entire chapter is about. And they have tried to make a body for themselves by perpetuating violence under this man-made law, which is the covenant with the harlot that builds fallen Adam up, making him a god in the earth, which is also the false image that these daughters of Zion, which is the 10 toes there, I think correlates to the 10 tribes, the northern tribes of Israel, which were cast like lionesses out in the fields of the Gentiles. In Micah, it tells us that they lie sleeping like lionesses, like Ariels, with truth in their mouth, to establish the clean footpath, which is your escape. No man can take you off this planet. Christ is waiting. Yes, he represents the new heaven. He represents the new tabernacle, the new body. But daughter Zion represents the one that sits in that holy of holies, because she is made in the image of her mother. It is she who's like God. And he says, you can blaspheme me and get away with it, but there is one yet greater to come. And he's talking about his Spirit, the Holy Spirit. And she is made in the image of her mother. And she sits in the Holy of Holies. She has his heart. She's his principle. She's his standard. And she is the clean footpath out of here. She's your escape. And according to when you begin to understand what Revelations is speaking of, she has 42 months to birth the children out of here. And only she can do it. That's what Jeremiah 30 verse 6 says. Why now do I see every man standing around with his hands on his hips as a woman in travail? They can't deliver the burden. It is on the righteous daughter Zion, which is gave in covenant. All right? And the issues of death, of escape, of life belongs to this Lord. And that's daughter Zion 136. And so you can do the hard study. You can say, I haven't. I live in the Word. I don't live in rapture dream notions. I live in the Word. And that's what it says is going to bring on the day of the Lord. Hasten, there in that passage, means study. To hasten the day of the Lord means to study the Word. It does not mean to go in and watch rapture video after rapture video and believe in a fallen theology that God's going to get you out of here. It is on her to birth the children out of here. And she does it through truth. And she's got 42 months to do that. That's the first 3.5 years. And that's akin to 42 months for a child. That's what you're looking at. Revelation 12. And she's finally going to deliver the children. And she will wrought a deliverance in the earth. And the inhabitants of the world will fall. And that's your false rulers that she's going to bring down. And they do that by smashing those 10 toes on that false image, which is king. No. The dominion belongs to daughter Zion. We're told that in Micah. So, there's the video. Hope you understand what I said. Thanks for all who watches the video, tries to understand it. Hope the Lord blesses you in your own personal endeavors. Hope you're all working hard to hasten on the day of the Lord. And I hope you all have a really nice day.